It's our pleasure to be talking with you a little bit today about this concept of brain fitness. And so I'm going to be the boring part of the presentation. I'm going to spend a few minutes with you talking a little bit about some of the neurobiology that underlies this concept of brain fitness. And then I'm going to turn you over to Mel, who's going to do the really with you examples and samples of brain fitness programs and give you an understanding of how to select brain fitness programs if you're interested in using those kinds of resources. So, okay. Is this mic fading in and out?
Yes, it is.
That it is. Okay. So I will do my best to speak. Can't hear me, please put your hand up in the back. So here are the goals of our program today. I hope by building a little bit of a conceptual understanding of the cognitive changes that occur with an aging brain. Then we're going to talk a little bit about strategies that are intended to support lifelong brain health. And then, as I said, Mel is going to give you the opportunity to explore and experience some brain fitness programs and give you some criteria. So we're going to start with a little 101, not even 101, kind of like 0.00101, something like that. It's going to be a very brief little introduction here, but this concept of brain fitness is really based on the new and emerging understanding that we have about how brains develop over the course of a lifespan and how brains develop and grow in response to their environment and the activities and challenges that the individual encounters. So what you have up here is a picture of a neuron, which is the basic building block of brain tissue. So a neuron, as you can see, looks a wee little bit like a tree. If you can picture, this was the tree after one of the hurricanes blew through recently, so it's a little bit on its side here. But what you see is that one end of the neuron, you see the axon, and at the other end you see the dendrites, which is what looks like the little branches off the end of the tree. Well, what we know is that when people are born, they have a set number of neurons, brain cells, available in their brain. There's quite a few of them, more than we really know, as a matter of fact. But we used to think that once your neurons were grown and developed, that they were exactly as they were, and that there was no opportunity for additional growth or for additional development. And what we have learned over time is that actually is not true. So the way these neurons work is that they communicate chemically and electrically with one another. And those little parts of the neuron that look like branches, they connect with other neurons. And the more connections that exist between neurons, the more dendrites that reach out and touch other neurons and specifically touch the axons and communicate with other neurons, the better the brain network operates. So the neurons are communicating with one another, and they communicate in groups and in clusters, and those groups and clusters allow for the different cognitive functions within the brain. And we now realize that over time, these neurons have the capacity to continue to grow and add dendritic connections throughout the brain. And the more that happens, the tighter the networks within the brain are. And it is this understanding, which we actually refer to as the concept of neuroplasticity, the idea that the brain can over time. It's this concept that really underlies a lot of what we see right now in brain fitness. So let's talk for a minute about an aging brain. So what we know about the aging brain is that there are certain age-related cognitive losses that are common as people get older. Now, what I would like to say is that in the absence of disease, if the person hasn't had strokes, if the person doesn't have a diagnosis of dementia, if the person has never had a brain injury, if there's not some kind of disease process that is affecting the aging brain, then generally speaking, these age-related cognitive losses do not significantly impact on function. People are, for the most part, still able to live their lives independently and able to do all the things that they used to do. They may experience a sense that, gee, I'm not as quick as I used to be, or it takes me a little bit longer to learn something new, or there may be the sense that I don't remember as well as I used to. But in most cases, people are still manage their affairs if there's not the presence of any kind of disease process at play. So some of the kinds of common age-related cognitive losses that we see are things like motor slowing. That's a very well-documented age-related change that people reaction time as they did when they were younger. We also see that there is some slowing in the process of new learning, so that ability to be able to essentially encode or store new information that you've been exposed to, as well as a slowed memory processing. It may take a little bit longer to make the connections or to pull information out of those memory files, if you will. There's also some reduced sense of sensory acuity, so vision may not be as good as some of that acuity declines. That also can create some problems with processing, brain processing. And then there's also a well-documented reduction in what scientists refer to as intelligence. And so fluid intelligence is that ability to make connections, to be able to take in information related to other kinds of things, to engage in creative problem solving. For the most part, there's some documented decrease in that as we age, but that is compensated for by an improvement in what's referred to as crystallized intelligence. The experiences that we all have, the knowledge base that we operate on, sort of the things that we know because we lived a long life. Sometimes we might even refer to it as wisdom, the wisdom that we have. So those are some of the common age-related cognitive losses that we may see when there's an absence of a disease process. Now, if there is a disease process present, for example, if somebody develops a diagnosis of dementia, let's say, then we're more likely to see things like reduction in attention, reduced ability to learn new information, not just slowing, but actually the inability to encode new information in your brain, to store it in your memory banks, if you will. You also see impairment in language skills. You may see changes in judgment and the ability to engage in problem solving at all. Those are the kinds of things that we see in the context of disease. One of the problems historically has been that we tend to confuse those two things. We tend to confuse the general public, is what I mean by we tend to confuse the cognitive changes that occur naturally with age, but tend not to impair function, with those kinds of changes that are related to disease processes. And so we have this idea that, well, as people get older, their memory's not as good. Well, you know, that's when you look at the science of it, that's not really true. If you look at the discrete pieces of information that people have the capacity to memorize as they age, the number of things we can memorize actually does not decrease. Again, in the absence of disease, it may be a little bit slower. You may have to work a little bit harder. You may need different strategies to learn and memorize that new information. So I think what's important for all of us to recognize is that not only does the brain have the capacity to grow and to develop, continue to enhance cognitive function as we age, but this concept that cognitive function will necessarily decline as you age is not really accurate. There are some changes that occur, but overall, the function can remain the same when there's an absence of disease, and people learn to compensate for some of those changes, which is why the function stays very much the same. Now, of course, those age-related cognitive changes, they're highly individual, and they have something to do with what does a person do on a regular basis. So, for example, if you've got someone who has worked all their life as an accountant, let's say, somebody who's really very, very good with numbers, and they're very good at manipulating numbers in their head, chances are, as they age, that will be a well-preserved function, even as disease processes take place. Now, that's not to say they'll maintain that capacity throughout the process of the disease. It can certainly reach a point in deterioration where that function may be lost. But even in the earlier stages of a disease process, if it's a well-used, well-practiced ingrained activity that the person has done all their lives, chances are that that's going to be a relative strength for them. In contrast, if you've got somebody who maybe worked as a car mechanic all their lives, maybe their ability to manipulate numbers may not be as good as they get older, but their ability to work with their hands or to appreciate visual spatial relationships may remain fairly strong as they go along. The reason for that is the activities that we do and the kinds of cognitive functions that we engage in most regularly are the activities that spur the growth in those neurons that I talked about. They are the activities that lend to this sense of neuroplasticity, where we're developing good, strong connections in the brain in those areas of cognitive function. And so then even in the face of perhaps age-related changes in the brain or even disease-related changes in the brain, those areas are going to be areas of relative strength. And so what this really points out to us is that lifestyle choices really can affect brain health. The kinds of things that we do, the sorts of activities that we engage in, everything from health-related behaviors like diet and exercise and managing stress levels and all those things that we know that we're supposed to do for our general physical health, those will support brain health. But in addition to that, the kinds of cognitive activities that we engage in will also help to develop the brain. And in particular, what's very important are these concepts of repetition and being challenged. And in particular, being challenged so that if you reach a certain threshold where you've actually mastered a task, that you have to challenge yourself a little bit more, and challenging yourself in novel areas, things that you haven't done before. These are all things that contribute to brain health. So, as I said, the good news is this concept of neuroplasticity, which basically means that the brain has a lifelong capacity for physical change, functional change, and to acquire and execute new skills and abilities. So again, while we don't produce new brain cells over time, we can promote growth in existing brain cells by the way we challenge and engage ourselves on a daily basis. So in terms of the physical change, it goes back to what I talked about before with the neurons. The ways we challenge our brain will contribute to the growth and development of those new neural connections. The expansion of those dendritic connections is what is prompted by the activities that we engage in. The functional change has to do with the more we grow and develop those neural networks, the more enhanced a particular area of cognitive function may be. So if we engage in tasks that are very heavily loaded toward memory, then we're improving the memory function in our brain by virtue of those enhanced physical connections. And then that gives us a new skill that may operate better in our day-to-day life and give us improved function in those areas. And these are the concepts that are woven into brain fitness kinds of tasks. I mean, essentially, brain fitness programs are designed and developed to help promote the kind of brain growth that will lead to improved function and ultimately an improved capacity to execute those new skills and abilities. So that's all the good news. That's the good stuff that's happening. The bad news is that as our understanding of the brain is evolving and emerging over time, what we have come to realize is that the disease processes that lead to dementia, we've got a lot of research related to this, the development of Alzheimer's disease. What we realize is that the groundwork for Alzheimer's disease is actually laid decades before we ever see symptoms, literally decades before. And what you see right here is a graphic that was taken from the new diagnostic criteria for Alzheimer's disease that was released in 2011. And quite simply, what this really shows is sort of the steps in the process. And so what happens is first you begin to get this development of plaques in your brain. They're related to a particular protein called amyloid, and those amyloid plaques begin to develop. And then secondly, as a result of those amyloid plaques, and also there's little tangles within the brain cells themselves due to a protein called tau. As those plaques and tangles develop, then you begin to see some neurodegeneration, that literally the connections in the brain begin to deteriorate, the cells begin to die, and as a result, the neural networks are diminished. And then after that, we begin to see some subtle cognitive decline. Doesn't interfere with function generally, but we see some subtle cognitive decline that oftentimes the person themselves may be aware of, or perhaps a loved one may be aware of. And then, in time, that may begin to present itself as mild cognitive impairment, which doesn't reach the level of a diagnosis of dementia, but does suggest that the person is beginning to notice some changes in their function, and then ultimately the development of what we would all recognize as dementia, where the person's ability to care for themselves, their ability to make good decisions on their own behalf is significantly reduced. So the point here is this, is what we know is that people who are developing Alzheimer's disease in particular, and to some extent we see similar kinds of processes that unfold in other dementias as well, that there's sort of this extended prodromal phase where the disease process is gathering steam, and that's happening for a good long time before we actually see the symptoms and the behavioral changes. And so one of the reasons why brain fitness is encouraged is because when we engage in those brain fitness activities and we develop those denser neural networks and those improved connections within the brain, essentially what we're doing is we're developing a sort of cognitive reserve. It doesn't mean that the individual will not develop dementia. Ultimately, in our current environment where we don't have a cure and our treatments are limited, ultimately, unfortunately, the disease does win out. However, what we have noticed is for people who are well educated, people who have challenged themselves intellectually and physically and engaged in new and novel activities, people that we presume have really developed those dense dendritic connections in their brains, they tend to fare much better for a longer period of time, even in the context of dementia. And in fact, there are reports all the time of autopsies that are done on individuals who have passed away and no one would have ever suspected that they have dementia. That's the report that we get, that they were functioning at a very high level, they were doing very well, and then you look at the brain on autopsy and there's plaques and tangles all over the place, and we wonder, well, why is that? Well, one of the theories is that those were probably people who had engaged in very active lifestyles and had challenged themselves intellectually and had developed a sort of cognitive reserve that made them somewhat more resilient to the progression of the disease process. So the point here is that denser is better. The more that we can develop our neurons, if you will, the more that we can develop our neural connections in the brain, then the more likely that we are to have a little additional capacity within the brain that will help to compensate for those age-related cognitive changes and may even help to improve resiliency in the face of disease. And that's why so many people have an interest in fitness kinds of activities. So again, I want to repeat, because I think this is very important, the connections, those dendritic connections, are fostered by novel activities. So for example, you always hear, we'll do crossword puzzles, right? How many people here are doing crossword puzzles in the hope that dementia won't get you, right? Well, crossword puzzles are great. I don't mean to discourage anybody from doing crossword puzzles, but if you've been doing crossword puzzles every day for the last 5 years, it's time for you to take up square dancing. Do something different, right? You need to challenge your brain in a different kind of way. You need to call on different aspects of your brain. Or if you've been doing the crossword puzzles and you've gotten really good at those, well then maybe you need to go to Sudoku. Am I saying it right? Sudoku? I don't know if I said it correctly. Secondly, you need to make sure the task is challenging. If you can sit down with a New York Times crossword puzzle and you can do it in a brief period of time, You're not being challenged anymore. You need to find something that's more challenging. Go take a class in French. Or if you speak French, then take a class in German. Find something that's going to be novel and it's going to be more difficult for you, that's going to be more challenging. And try to spread your experiences out across an array of areas. Challenge your memory, challenge your motor function, challenge your language function, challenge your arithmetic abilities. Challenge every area that you can and keep increasing the level of difficulty. That's how you promote this neuroplasticity in your brain and hopefully help to create some of those denser dendritic connections. And then finally, it is a matter of repetition. If you go square dancing just once because they're having some special event at the community center, that is fine and well. But that in and of itself is probably not going to promote brain growth in any significant kind of way. You want to try and repeat the challenges in a way that it really is prompting and encouraging the growth. It's a lot like lifting weights, if you think about it. Think about what we know about lifting weights and muscle exercises. It has to do with increasing the amount of weight that you use and increasing the challenge and doing enough repetitions that you develop the resistance and see that muscle growth. Well, it's very similar to that in terms of how the brain works. And ideally, if they're well made, if they're well done, then brain fitness systems utilize these principles. So, the other thing I'm going to ask you to tuck away in the back of your brain before I turn you over to Mel is I am going to ask you to notice that many of the brain fitness systems actually target the cognitive functions that we know naturally decline with age. So remember how I said to you it's things like motor processing and memory processing, or speed of motor response and memory processing and general cognitive processing and fluid intelligence. Those are the kinds of things that we expect are more likely to decline with age. Well, what you're going to notice as Mel goes through some of these brain fitness systems is these are the areas that are targeted by those systems. So the folks who develop brain fitness systems have by and large, they've done their research. They know what are the areas of cognitive function that are most likely to decline with age. To develop systems that will provide you with repetition and an increasing sense of challenge and novel stimuli in a way that help to develop those neural networks and hopefully then give you greater brain capacity that gives you that resilience to age-related change. So with that, I really do want to turn you over to Mel because I promise you she's going to be far more entertaining than I am. So I'm going to turn you over to her and we'll be able to take questions at the end.
Thank you, Dr. Carney. So Kelly did a really good introduction, and the thing that I take away from that is if we can build those bridges and make them stronger now, they're going to last. And the really good news about brain fitness to build those bridges is it's relatively fun to do. You can do it low cost most of the time, and it's easy. So we have a couple ways here. And keep in mind, as Dr. Carney mentioned, while some of these areas target cognitive function better than others, if you keep those four concepts in mind, repetition, novelty of task, trying new things, and diversity, you're going to help build those bridges. So physical exercise, add brain fitness to the list. Research has shown that specifically getting that oxygen to the brain really helps improve brain tissue. And the brains of those that are physically fit can actually look different from those that aren't. Specifically, the tissues in the areas of the brain that control memory and communication, there's less shrinkage in those areas. Aerobic exercise especially can really help bring oxygen to our brains and help preserve those delicate tissues. Learning a new language, as Dr. Carney mentioned, this is a great one because it's going to do some really great things for our brains. And again, research here out of Sweden has shown if you're learning a foreign language, your brain actually shows growth in areas specifically for spatial orientation and for short-term memory. So they looked at brain scans of those learning a foreign language and those not, and they see those little pathways growing. I saw a statistic recently from the Gallup poll that said about 85% of Americans wish they played an instrument. If you find yourself in that majority, you might like to know that it is an excellent brain fitness activity. You're reading music, you're moving your fingers, and you're learning something new. These are actually really great exercises to help improve our processing speeds and our memory. Some research even suggests it's the key to longevity, and it's what helps keep Mick Jagger doing what he does at his age. You might want to be physically fit before you try some of those moves, though. Playing puzzle games, as we mentioned, it's a start. If you're doing the New York crossword puzzle and you think it's helping, I challenge you then to time yourself and try and beat your time tomorrow. That's a great little way to add a challenge to that game and really take something that you love and you're getting entertainment out of and making it kind of a brain fitness activity. Again, cognitive function might, as far as building those neuroplasticities, might be lower, but it's taking something that you enjoy and helping add some, brain health to that activity. Build a model. What I mean here is really any activity where we're taking our hands and we're using our eyes and we're doing something intricate and detailed. Knitting, building models, playing music, putting puzzles together. Activities, cooking, great one. Oh, by the way, this is the interactive part, so. One of the great things about these activities is they light up parts of our brain that control fine motor skills, as well as, fine motor skills and dexterity. So doing those activities, here's a great little activity. We brush our teeth, hopefully a couple times a day. And the next time you brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand. That's a great, fun booster. It's a little hard. I wouldn't recommend you try it with scissors. Start with a toothbrush. But another great activity is taking a ball and bouncing it in your hand and catching it and trying it with your opposite hand. Again, an activity we've all done before, but adding a challenge that helps our brain kind of wake up, right? What else we have up there? Technology. One of the big parts of this program, we're going to look at some technology programs. I will say that not all technology is the same. It is a business after all. But if you can find programs that specifically focus on those areas that Dr. Carney talked about, we're looking at processing, we're looking at problem solving, flexibility, speed and attention. Programs that really focus on those areas are going to be the most beneficial for us. I was surprised to see that the industry in 2009 was almost $300 million. And in just 2 short years, it's expected to be $8 billion. There are a lot of dollars at stake here. So we as consumers need to be informed. We need to recognize that not all programs are going to be as beneficial as the others. There's dozens and dozens of options out there. And we also need to recognize that much like the fitness industry itself, the larger fitness industry, there's very little regulation. So you can claim what you want as a marketing tactic. And usually, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So today, we can take the opportunity to recognize that there are some specific things we want to look for when we're in the market for a brain fitness program. One of the takeaways you have today is actually a consumer checklist. It's been adapted from the International Council on Active Aging, and it just identifies some key elements you want to look for to ensure that the software you're interested in investing in, mind you, they can range from a few dollars a month to several thousand for sophisticated systems for organizations, that it's giving you the benefits that you really need and want. Dr. Carney and I chose to look at 3 programs today, specifically because these programs all play an important part in the brain fitness industry. Posit Science itself has been around for many years and is kind of a pioneer in the software and the neuroplasticity area. Built on science, reputable company, kind of the gold standard. We also will look at Dacom Brain Fitness a little bit today. And we selected that one because in 2006 it became the #1 product for long-term community, so it's popular. We'll also look at Lumosity today, and that might be the name that some of you recognize most on the list. They've been around for about 5 years now, and their marketing model is a little different, and they've been able to reach mass appeal, frankly, globally by a real marketing focus. So if we take a look at these products and we evaluate on some of those core requirements of a quality program, we're looking specifically at a piece of software's ability, or I should say the scientific support behind that software. We're also looking at what the exercises are targeted to do. Are they focusing on those skill development, that processing, critical skill thinking, the memory, those types of areas? You also want to see if that software has an assessment tool. It would be really helpful to know where you were and how far you've come in that software. Structure is key to a good program as well. There are so many similarities between working out our physical bodies and our brains. If you go to the gym and you work out for 10 hours straight and don't go back for a few days, you're not going to do very much as far as stamina build. But if you work out 20 minutes every day, you're going to have much more meaningful and beneficial results. And that's much how this software works. So you want to make sure your program recommends some structure. Challenging and motivating and fun and interesting, that's really a personal preference, but it's critical to success. Because I'll be honest with you, I am not a big fan of working out. I can't go to the gym. But I do enjoy other ways to work out. So if I can't go to the gym every day, I can maybe take a walk with my dogs. So getting a program that meets your personal needs is really important. So Posit Science. I can tell you that it's been around for many years, and it was the result of a neurologist, Dr. Michael Mesrich. He and his team really focused on plasticity about 20 years ago when this idea kind of came around. Prior to that, he was the lead doctor on the cochlear implant team. So he's been in the industry of processing for quite some time. The product itself has a long list of professionals, both in the science and academic world, that backed, invented, programmed, and support the product. The teams come from institutions such as Harvard, Yale, the Mayo Clinic, even Johns Hopkins University. And quality science has gone into the program, and there are literally dozens and dozens of peer reviews and research articles written on and about this particular program and its results. So there's scientific evidence there that say, using this program, people have seen improvements in their processing. Targeted exercises. There are specific exercises designed to target those key areas that Dr. Carney mentioned. And I'll say that as far as an assessment tool, the program, like the other three, does a great job. They start you early, they do an assessment to see where you're at, and then throughout the program, they'll give you cues on how well you're doing, and they'll also challenge you when you need to be. The Posit Science program does an interesting thing with challenge. They call it their threshold training. And the goal is that you only ever get about 80% of the questions right. The moment you get on, you're in the zone, it will purposefully challenge you to push you out of your comfort zone a little bit. So they do that threshold training. Like Dr. Carney mentioned, I have that 5-pound weight. If I lift that 5-pound weight forever, I'm never gonna grow that muscle. So every so often I have to lift an 8-pound weight. Fun and interesting, you'll notice Posit Science on our scale, if some of you have played, it's really, really a great program, but not everyone is as engaged in it, and some say it could be a little bit more fun. So it's very science, and you'll get to see it, but some of the folks that I've worked with that have completed the program say it could be a little bit more entertaining. The audience at the bottom is kind of my own personal take on these programs. And my experience with Posit Science, if I had to generalize, I would say it's for a mass audience. We've had folks complete our programs, and some of them have been in their teens and all the way up through their 90s. We actually have a 96-year-old graduate student from our program. She's come back 3 times, loves it. But the key here is it's a mass appeal. Though you can be young, you can be middle-aged, male, female, and you're interested in the program. Another nice feature of the Brain Fitness program, it's very user-friendly. You don't have to have any computer skills to use the program. It's intuitive and it walks you through the process, and as long as you can move a mouse, you can play the game. Posit Science, by the way, recently changed their model. If you've heard in the past that it was expensive, it was. For 12 games, it was about $600. Yeah, they have to pay for all those scientists, huh? I will tell you, though, that they've changed their model recently, and it's much more affordable. And I think they've also tried to accommodate the fact that some people said it wasn't fun enough. They now offer an online program. It's through subscription for about $10 a month. You pay your subscription and you have access to the 25 online games. Recommended play. They used to recommend, and again, this goes along with the results you saw, that you would have to play about an hour a day, 5 days a week. So again, may have accounted for the fact that people maybe got exhausted through it. Today on their online program, they're recommending 3 or 4 days a week for 30 minutes. Still the longest play of these 3 games. DACM measures up, I will say, as far as the science is concerned. Background on DACM, a little different. Instead of a neurologist, you have an executive, I believe, movie producer from Hollywood, who's, this is not a knock, it's actually a really entertaining game. His father was diagnosed with dementia, and he wanted to create a game that could help build those dendrites, but also be entertaining. So he created the DACM Brain Fitness program, certainly targeting some of the areas, maybe not as extensive. There's a science team behind it. A lot of the work on the DACM product came out of Cedars-Sinai Hospital and Berkeley. Entertaining, though, I would say it's one of the most entertaining programs I've seen. And that might have to do with the target audience. I have to kind of say that as a disclaimer here. It's very focused on a specific generation. There are a lot of references to, I'll be honest, characters, songs, and things that younger generations might not be able to connect to. I did learn who Ella Fitzgerald was by playing this game, so full disclosure. So that's the target you're looking at here. When I was actually setting up the program, the technician that was here helping said, he saw it going on, and he said, I don't know a lot of who these people are in these pictures, so it was about 20. Audience, another thing that's really neat about this program is entertaining, engaging. Probably why it's #1 in senior living. It's also a really user-friendly program. They designed it so you could use a touch screen. So if you can use a mouse, great, but if you can afford a touch screen, the buttons are big and they're bright and they're colorful and they really draw the users in. That's a great question. Today, DACM has products that just recently came out. In fact, it's not even on the website. They offer a tablet. I tried to find the link for it, and the website says contact them for a tablet installation. Because right now, or I should say until this post came up on their website, you have to contact them. Their model was for $300, you get the software in the mail, and you install it on your computer. But I thought that would be a question for today, and I checked. You contact them. They said they're available for tablet installation and smartphone. Lumosity. So Lumosity's been around for about 5 years now, and it's the result of a science team and a marketing team and a computer programming team. So I think this is a result of those dollars that could be had in the industry. They saw an opportunity and they made a really, really good product. They marketed it well, and today they have in their database, their repository of users is over 145 million profiles. This is a global appeal product. And their research is based out of institutions such as Stanford, Berkeley, They're actually recognized and endorsed by the American Medical Association. This particular product is unique because there's so much data there. They've really been able to do a lot of research on this product. 145 million profiles provides a wealth of information, and they can look at results of literally anyone across the globe. If you have internet and you've logged in, they have a profile on you. Which actually is a good point I'd like to make. I don't want to get off topic, but in case the question came to mind, what's happening with this data? That's something you want to consider when you're purchasing these programs. They often, we're doing them a favor by playing these games too. They're using our results to help fund and to provide data for their research. So you'll have a choice when you sign in to give them those particular credentials. You do have an option though if you don't want to provide detailed information. Maybe all you want to let them know is your gender or your age, but you have options there. So anyway, Lumosity, their target's a little bit different. There's great research, great science there. This, like I mentioned, has such a wealth of information. You can find results on this particular product affecting any kind of mental state. I saw there's research done if you have schizophrenia and you play Lumosity, the impact of that. If you have attention deficit disorder, just tremendous wealth of information on this product. A great research tool. The other thing is this one, I would say, as far as an audience, again, this is just my personal perspective. If I were going to run this program in our communities, I would say it may not appeal to all users. This product, thank you, I'm running late, huh? Sorry, I'm hurrying. This product itself is going to allow, it's going to require you to type and use a mouse. So if you have some issues with that, that could really be a problem for you. And what I've found with our users is a lot of the time that can overwhelm them. So if you have someone that wants to get brain fitness, I would say demo the product. All of these products have demonstrations. Demo them, because if you're not very good at typing and you buy Lumosity, you could immediately be disenchanted and disengaged from the product, and then, you know, frankly, what good is it? Sorry. Is everybody engaged, or am I boring you here? Yep. Thanks. Oh, thank you. That one is about $15 a month subscription as well. And that's the super mobile product. You can download an app on your phone, tablet, and on your computer as well. The Lumosity. It's the most mobile. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to let you know, I started it myself, and I took that introductory year, and it's $4.32 a month. It's like $57 for the first year, then it goes up to like 78 or 9. And they do an automatic renewal, so you have to be careful that when your time is up, that you tell them to stop or you're going to get something for the next year. But it's only $4.33 a month right now for the introductory. They have 35% off and on the computer.
That's so they run deals, right? Yeah. I just saw Posit Science has a deal too. If you sign up for a year, it's something like $60, and then you can refer a friend, and a friend's subscription would be like $30. So that's a great point. And it goes back to that. This is a business, so get the demo, get on the mailing list. They're going to send you a bunch of information about the product and just the industry, but then you'll also get free special offers.
Yeah, the reason that happened too, because you can learn after a while with computer things. You can sort of play with them a little bit, teasing them that, well, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't, and it kept going down, more of an offer and more of an offer, and finally I took the 35% off one. So, for $4.33 a month, how can you go wrong?
Does anybody want to come up and demo these? I will tell you, the idea is not only to get them right, but also to get them wrong, so we can show everyone what it looks like. So I usually encourage someone. I created a profile for myself. This is the Brain Fitness Program. And here's the areas, and some of them are grayed out because, again, this is a demo, but the demos give you a lot. So I really suggest, if you or someone you know is interested, sign up for a demo. Then there are those areas that Dr. Carney spoke about, attention, brain speed, and it shows you the game, so there's that connection. These are the exercises that are going to work on these specific areas. So I'm just going to pick one at random here. We're going to let's do attention, and we'll do divided attention. So as you can see, now if this was the live game, it would pick games for me. I wouldn't get a choice. Okay. This is a demo. So for this activity, it's going to try it wants my attention. It's going to give me two different shapes, but it doesn't want me to focus on the shape. It wants me to focus on the color. So all I need to do is confirm, are they the same color? And the better I get, the harder they're going to get. They'll get faster, they'll get a little, the colors might start to kind of bleed together. So the first thing it's doing is it's going to show me. So that's a no, right? And please holler.
Yes. 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 No. Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Oops, I gotta stop. Also, what this is doing is it wants me to play with my fingers. So not only am I trying to process, I have to have dexterity. I just missed that one. How about this? Try presenting and playing the game. See at the top, it's now building up my thresholds and it's figuring out what I can do and how fast they can be. Maybe if they're the same shape, my score is better than if they're different shapes. It's learning. There I go. So we get the thing, get the feel. This is a fun game. I will say their online games are much more interesting than, they've really upped the interest level. Just real quick here, I'll show you this one. This is the Hawk. And this one is specifically for brain speed. It's going to show me these pictures relatively quickly, and I have to identify out of these triangular quadrants which one has a different looking bird. Okay? Everybody see it? Oh, it's going to train for us. See, in here it's training us. And these are how these games work. Everybody see it?
Killed it.
Notice how it's starting off slowly. As I get them right, it'll start to try and challenge me more. That's pretty quick. I have. And that was a good one. So that's the brain fitness, okay? Now in the essence of time, come to another one. Boy, I don't know how that time got away from me. Okay, so this is Lumosity. Again, I'm just playing a demo here. This one actually shows me my schedule, and I can see this is their brain performance index is showing my scores, and then they're going to keep my history down here. So you can see I've been practicing a little bit. So today's game, it gives me a training schedule. I'm going to click on train, and today we're going to do the chalkboard challenge. It also tells you a little bit about what it's for. So this is taking me back to problem solving and my reasoning. And then it even tells you a little bit, you're going to get these little notes here. These little notes and these rewards, you'll hear beeps and dings. It's actually providing dopamine to our brain. It wants us to get engaged. All right, so the chalkboard challenge. It even asks me if I want to learn. I'm going to say no. I'll show you how. Okay, so this one, I have to pick which one is higher. So it wants me to identify quickly which one is higher. See how hard it got immediately when I was showing off? I knew that would happen. And this is what happens if I get some wrong in a row. Then it will slow back down for me. 15. Oh, how do I do this? All right, well, you see how this game works. Did you see it? All right, let's check out this one. Oh, Lumosity, you should come up here and show us how it's done.
It does get harder really quick, though. It does.
So you can see, depending on who your target is for this product, is the number even? Is the wow? Yeah. Oh, I'm on the bottom. Yeah. I'm just trying to make sure I push the right button at this point.
Yeah.
So you can see how quickly they, do you see the different audience here? This one's gonna have, it's a little bit more interactive. And again, I am struggling a little bit with keeping my fingers on the right keys in this particular game. Okay, now I wanna switch over to another product here. Well, it looks like we're having some technical difficulty here. But what I wanted to show you was the DACM program. And what's different about the DACM program is it's much more theatrical. You almost feel like you're part of a movie. Just gonna try one technical second. Well, I'll try and get it working after if anyone wants to see that one, but I have it queued up. And basically what that program looks like, and again, this particular product is really popular in senior living communities. It's very interactive. There are over 100 games in that program. So for the $300, you're getting 100 games. And what the program does is you have a host, and your host says, welcome, today's October 18th. Are you ready to play some games? And then you go through numerous games in about a 20-minute period. And they're short and quick, but they're all focused on those different kind of areas, although not necessarily to the extent the other two are. Great graphics, great sound. They play movies, there's music. It's a very entertaining program. And I apologize, I'm having some technical difficulties here. Back. All right, but we're back here. So here's where we're at. You got to see that one. Like I said, we'll try it again, but I want to just save some time here. We were going to play the Stroop effect. Has anybody ever seen that or heard about that? It's in your handouts, and it's just an interesting concept that came about. It was discovered in the 30s by a psychologist. Basically, when your brain gets conflicting information, you can kind of trick it a little bit, and just proves how delicate our brains are, you know? And there's all the research recently that says, how good are we at multitasking? I think the Stroop effect kind of shows that we can have some degradation when we, I can't do two things at one time. Well, anyway. I know we're over, and I apologize, but I did want to leave some time and opportunity for questions.